Good morning, everybody. It's Thursday morning, and I'm here with one of our most favorite partners, my favorite partner of today, without question. Harmonize, we've got their CEO, Marcus. We've got Michael, who is formally trained in training, and he is a rock star for the Harmonize team. We're going to talk more about that. And Heather does all things marketing, has been a dream to work with over the past few weeks. We're excited to have them here. They're doing some cool stuff in online discussions and a whole lot more. And by the way, they're going to give away an iPad, so you might want to stick around. Anyways, Marcus, let's hand it over to you and get this thing going. Welcome, everybody. As always, tell us who you are and where you're from in the comments.
Excellent. And while you're telling us who you are and where you're from, I'll give you an overview of who we are so you can get a feel for our background. Like you said, my name's Marcus, and I am sort of ed tech focused on all things discussion and communication and engagement for students. Been doing that for like 15 years. So I come at it from the technology side and seeing what works from looking at data and seeing what works from just watching people use systems that we build, which is super fun. And Michael, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michael Hakkarainen. I'm the Harmonize Success Coach, and I help with onboarding and training and providing feedback to all of our users. And I am an ISTE certified ed tech trainer who spent the last 6 years training mostly Canvas to educators in Utah. So hi, everyone who's here in Utah.
Excellent. All right, let's start rolling through. Like Mark said, we're going to give away an iPad to say thank you for coming because we learn a lot from these things. And your questions help influence like what we're focused on. What problems are we trying to solve? How are we trying to help instructors as we go through these things? So if you want to be registered to win, there's a URL that Mark can throw out in the comments for you to sign up. I'll prompt for this once or twice throughout the call, and then right towards the end, we'll do a drawing and give away the iPad. So that's a big thank you to you guys because we learn, like I said, tons from these things. Every question that we don't know the answer to, we take as a point to go back and research and figure out. And then Heather, you want to do a quick introduction of yourself?
Sure. My name is Heather Hodson. I've worked in education for about 12 years and excited to be with the Harmonize team and helping to promote this wonderful product, helping to create content and all of the digital pieces. Thank you for joining.
Awesome. So go ahead and Michael and flip through the slides. So the way we're going to run this, we had some questions that came in beforehand. We're going to start answering those questions. Feel free to throw your questions in the comments of whatever platform you're on. And we will start then rolling into sort of a live Q&A, answering things as best we can from our expertise. And we'll be sure and say we don't know, and we'll follow up with you afterwards. The only way we'll be able to follow up with you afterwards if you've actually signed up for the iPad win. But if you do have a question we don't get to, we will do our best to follow up with those. Or like I said, if you have a question where we're like, ooh, good question, we'll go get with some experts that are smarter than us in certain areas and figure out how we can do that. So rolling in, who 42 Lines is, the makers of Harmonize. We've been building ed tech software for 15 years now and are really super excited to be able to continue to do so. I tried to become a teacher about 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and did not succeed because it was way too hard, and it's a hat tip to the instructors out there who work so hard in this area. So I came back into technology at that point and decided I would enable instructors to do what they needed to do by making better technology. So that's who the company is. That's sort of what our ethos is as we go through. So thank you everybody for joining. We're going to roll into some of the questions that came in beforehand. But like I said, throw your questions in and Mark is going to help us moderate those and toss them out to us to answer. So we'll spend about maybe the first 10 minutes or so going over the existing questions. And with that, I will turn it over to Michael.
Got to find that mute button. All right, so this is one of the first questions that came in from Susan in Oregon. She asked, what are the best practices with respect to online discussions? And specifically, how do we navigate flexibility, like having asynchronous participation with an incentive to post early? And what we want to answer that with is that there are a lot of best practices. And sometimes I hear people say we don't like to use the term best practices because it implies that there's just like one right way to do it. But there's many better practices or best practices for online discussions. And here's just a few of them that we wanted to share with you. First off, we want to always post questions and topics for our students that they can connect to. So that could be like having a thoughtful prompt, but also including video or embeddable links. So the students aren't just passively sitting there reading, but are actively engaged in a video, or even better yet, actively engaged in gathering information from a website. So having something that is actively engaging. We also want to provide opportunities for students to have voice and choice. And that can mean a lot of different things. It could be multiple ways for students to respond. Personally, I had a tremendous student this past spring who speaks English as a second language. She is a native of China living in the United States. And her first question at the beginning of the course was, will grammar count in our discussion responses and assignments? Because learning English as a second language can be very difficult. And then the second concern was making video or audio because of being self-conscious about an accent. So we're giving our students multiple ways to show what they know. And it can be text, it can be video, it can be images, it can be GIFs. That's when we're going to have students really begin to engage, especially if they can create their own media, which you want it to be really easy to get the technology out of the way, not having to like add plugins or approving cameras and things like that, but just a real simple like click and go to record video and audio. And we also want our instructors to always remember to be present and not have that phenomenon where students are sitting there in an online class wondering, am I being graded by a computer? But for the instructor to be present in the discussion as well, checking in on a daily basis, maybe setting their notifications or following the topic so that they can go in and leave comments, replies, and reactions and steer the conversation as we go. And we want to show you a couple of ways to do that. I have a compelling example of a discussion topic. This is called the I Can't Funeral. And I set this up for an introduction to like entrepreneurship. And so what the students have to do in this college level business class is bury one of their I can'ts, one of those statements that puts them in an anti-growth mindset, right? So what you're seeing here is that there have been some milestones set, and this helps avoid that last minute rush to always post everything a few minutes before the discussion due date. So there's been some milestones set here, and then the directions, and then a nice engaging image that they can look at right away and understand what it is they're doing. They're burying their I can'ts. The students then go in and create a post. And to do that, they click create post. And here we have these are demo students. We have some posts submitted by Bernadette, who says she can't stop feeling like she can't keep up. And then there's one from Penny and Sheldon. And it looks like that Raj posted a picture of a parent with him on marionette strings because he feels like he can't escape from his parents. So by having an image, by allowing them to create video and then having these cards that they can flip, it doesn't look like your traditional text-based, post, reply with 2 comments and then move on. It's much more engaging with the images. And when you see a person's image, you want to click on it and flip the card and be able to read and see what they said. I'm going to roll up the post so I don't have to scroll through it all the time. And then students are able to add their comments underneath. It looks like Sheldon's has been administratively deleted. I can tell you that that's because he wrote something a little snarky. He said, of course you feel like you can't keep up. You don't have a PhD. So when that happens, we can go in and administratively delete or remove a post. And then of course there's Raj, who posted a picture. And so his image appears here. And it's very easy to add these pictures. It's a simple drag and drop or search and add. We can get into that here in just a little bit. But I also want to talk about being present. As an instructor, if I want to know what I've missed, I can look at a discussion and go straight to this little icon with a bell. And if there is anything that I've missed, I can click on that, or I can watch the topic if I want to follow it. But that just gives you a little idea of asking a question that isn't like a check the box and move on, something that it asks them to think constructively about themselves, some deep thinking, some reflection, being vulnerable, putting themselves out there, being able to comment on each other with encouragement and constructive criticism, and then having that threaded replies and the images to flip is much more engaging.
And let me jump in as well and say, like, we're demoing these things in our product because we're unabashedly proud of our product, but you can do the same thing in other discussion platforms, perhaps not as smoothly, perhaps every now and then we'll touch on something you can do, but I don't want to give you things that you can only do if you're using our product. We just think our product is great, so we're going to use it that way. but when you're thinking about these things, thinking about how you can do them and whatever you're doing inside of the Canvas discussions as well is possible. So someone
Hey,
asked,
Marcus.
Yep.
Marcus and Michael, I promise that during this 30, 40, whatever minute session, I will jump in abruptly and awkwardly. So here I go, jumping in awkwardly and abruptly. Erica's got a good question here on Facebook. Erica, don't be sorry for asking questions. We want you to ask as many questions over the next few minutes as you can. She says, what are milestones? How do you set them up? She loves the layout, super cool layout. So talk about that, milestones, and how do I set them up?
Okay, so milestones are often called multiple due dates inside the Canvas forums, Canvas communities. So we have a nice compelling layout for it to where you can basically pick 3 days before the post is due, I want you to make before the topic is due, I want you to make a post. 2 days before, I want you to have made 2 comments. 1 day before, I want you to have reacted to several other people's posts. What we're trying to do is avoid that 11:59 rush. Every student comes in and does it. So in terms of doing it in Canvas discussions, you have to do this just textually and encourage students to prompt to do it. We're just taking it one step further to say, go ahead and configure it, and then we will actually make that available for you in Speedgrader to be able to see it. But the idea is, based on your assignment due date, let's prompt people to participate more early as you go.
And Marcus, great points. Karen is kind of asking something that's in that same vein. Is there a way to automatically send reminders or notifications to students, say 24 hours before the due date, so they don't miss it?
You don't even have to do that. We do that for you. So if there is a student who has not met one of the milestones and it's coming close, we will notify them so that they can do so. And if they do miss the milestone and the assignment due date passes, we will go ahead and submit that to Speedgrader so that you can grade it, and we'll note that it was done late, so you can still get a grade to them and be able to take care of it.
Erica, you're right. That is super cool, and Harmonize is super awesome. Let's go on to a question from my dear friend from FIU, Sky King. She's saying, is there a recommendation on how much an instructor should post to a discussion to keep students engaged in that discussion?
I'm going to answer that in 2 parts, and then Michael chime in because there's wide disagreement on this. My take is like, once a day is a nice middle ground, but more is always better. And if you can't do once a day, we actually recommend setting up what's called a student facilitator because you have to keep that sort of churn going of like what's happening in this discussion. So if you can, through an icebreaker or through some early discovery, figure out which of your students are like super engaging people, nominate them, give them an elevated role to say, I want you to go and respond thoughtfully to what the students are doing. I'm going to grade you on responding thoughtfully versus the actual content in the submission. So you don't have to do double work, but I want you to go participate in the class and do it as well. My take is the students ideally should log in at least once a day, and when they do, they need to see something that made it worth their while to log in, be it from another student, be it from their peers. If you can, one of the things we focus on is getting peers to interact. Once that's happening, it's magic, and you're just like, great, I can just watch the show unfurl. So that'd be my advice. Michael, does that chime in with, or I guess line up with what you feel?
Yeah, I was going to say there's basically like 3 categories that I would need more information from in order to answer that question clearly. And the first one would be, what's the topic? If it's a simple like read and reflect, you're probably not going to see as much interaction. And so you wouldn't need to check it every single day, as if it was a topic that was like maybe politically charged, like something about current events, where you want to kind of keep a tab on what students are saying. You might have to also then assess the type of students that you're working with, the grade level. If you're working with graduate level students versus 3rd graders, you're going to see a different level of engagement and activity. So that would influence how often you check it. But the most important information would be being able to go into the discussion once it's posted and see for yourself how much interactivity is happening with your students. And if it's not what you expect, then you need to start prompting more by maybe asking students questions. And one way to do that is you could like tag students in comments, or you could jump into some of the replies and be an active participant in there. And to come back to that other question about notifications, yes, it is possible to look at your notifications in the discussion, and you can also set your notifications. So you would do this in Canvas or Harmonize, but you could go in and say, I need to be notified every time a student posts or a student replies. And then that eliminates the need to always be like constantly actively checking it. You can just have that sort of like meter fed to your email. So you need to go and say, oh, wow, there's been like 20 posts. Let's go see what they're saying. Or I haven't gotten any notifications. There haven't been any posts. I better go in there and kind of, you know, give a little nudge to the conversation.
I think, Sky, you asked about icebreakers, and that is a great question. If I remember right, Heather, we actually had an article on this, on icebreakers that we shared from a previous webinar.
Yeah, we have a blog post, so I'll work on getting that. We can put it in
Awesome.
the chat with some
Great.
examples.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Michael, I want to roll on and feel free to ask any questions. They don't have to be on the topics we're covering. So dive in, toss them out, and we'll continue on with the questions people submitted ahead of time until we get some good ones from the live chat too.
Am I answering this one too?
Oh, no, I'm answering this one. Sorry, you're right.
Well, I just want to point out, Marcus, real quick, I want to point out that we missed a question over in the chat. Maryline did say something about confusing students with, oh, actually, this is Maryline's question, so let's answer it. Cool.
Oh, great. I'm glad you could come to the actual session. Yeah, so we started out in Milestones by saying you can monitor all kinds of things in your classroom discussion, comments and replies, and reactions and initial posts. And so, Michael, if you want to go to the next screen, what we're after here is this idea that like the instructor is going to make a post, create the topic, a student's going to submit a post, and then what we call a comment is a direct reply to that post. So you are reacting to the initial post by the student. And then a reply is when a student is responding to a comment. And so we're trying to create this cycle of conversation where it's like 3 levels deep or 4 levels deep, depending on how you count them. We are getting some questions around, is that too configurable? And so we actually have, based on Maryline, your question, and a lot of others, we're actually going to make a simplified UI to where maybe we'll be able to combine those two and say, look, if you're, as an instructor, don't want the power to be able to say, I want comments on both posts versus comments on replies to matter, we'll let you just collapse those two and just say, I don't care what kind of comment it is. You know, let's go ahead and just monitor all of those. So that's what I say we learn from these types of things. So Maryline's actually using our software, so that's awesome. Thank you for that. Her feedback and others are letting us make it better. So if you ask questions or you see anything that's confusing, chime in, because that's how we learn. Oh, sorry, there was one more screenshot I should cover.
Well, we should point out that not only are replies different from a comment as far as how they're counted, but also in order to preserve the conversation, the replies are threaded into the comments. So you don't have that like 2010 era Facebook where you're like, why is Heather saying this about Marcus's post like 30 lines down? So the replies do get threaded, embedded, whatever you want to call it, injected right into the conversation. So they are in the flow. That's another reason for the separation there.
Cool. All right.
Marcus and Michael, let's stop for a second and take this question from Steven on Facebook. So he says, I teach pre-service teachers at a community college. Our local school district has just begun using Canvas this month. I'd like to have our college students create their own Canvas course that gives them the opportunity to experience the LMS before employment with the district. What are your thoughts on how to best orchestrate that?
Michael, that's pure Canvas land, so you're going to be better to answer that than I am.
Okay, so I'm going to put on my old UEN hat. I don't have a UEN hat, but if I did, I'd put it on. And what I would answer with this is what I would tell instructors, you know, even 5-6 years ago, who were using Canvas for the first time and were afraid they were going to break something or just wanted a place to get comfortable using the tool. I would direct them to go to canvas.instructure.com, which is the free for teachers Canvas instance, and start building like a playground sandbox course in there. And I even had a lot of instructors say like, well, this is amazing. I'm using it to make courses to support my private guitar lessons that I do on the side and things like that. So if you want your students at the community college, you pre-service teachers, to get a feel for Canvas, I would recommend that. Mark, you're the Instructure employee. Would you agree with that?
I couldn't agree more, Michael. You nailed it. With that, let's keep going. Let's keep going with the questions we had specifically about online discussions.
Cool. All right, Michael, we're on the next slide. So there's a big, this is the root of like all things discussions. Like, how do I get students to respond to their peers with thoughtful, educated comments? Because often, you know, even if you set up milestones, sometimes you will get answers and you're like, I want you to make 2 comments, and they'll go in and they'll be like, nice work, great job, or whatever. And that's not terribly useful. So if you want to hit the next slide, Michael. You know, it's all about setting clear expectations. So we talked about milestones, about how to do that, but you can, if you need to be purely prescriptive, you can set up word count totals and what those comments need to look like. But what we recommend is less of a firm, this is how it has to happen, but give them some starter ideas, you know, sort of, and then to be present and sort of model those ideas. So Michael pulled together a slide where it's like, you know, if you're giving them a prompt, you can actually line them up to start with to say, this is how you could respond. Let me give you some ideas of the types of response I'm looking for. This goes back to the expectations thing. So it's really about, does the student understand what you want? Because really, in some way, they're going to do what you meet your expectations, as long as your expectations are clear, because you're grading them. And as you do this, it sort of builds on itself. So in the first module, the second module, the couple weeks of the course, they have to get to know what you expect. And then you don't have to be as nudgy and as controlling. Maybe controlling is not the right word, but to be able to do this. But if you are clear up front, this is what I want you to do. And in your comments, I want you to really think and ask the following in the comments. Then you can start that cycle we talked about of topic, post, comment, reply, topic, post, comment, reply, comment, reply, comment, reply, comment, reply happening, so that you don't have to control it as much. So, but it just goes back to expectations, and as much information as you can give the students to succeed, the better. All right, Michael.
Can I add something really quick here?
Absolutely.
Since you brought up, Marcus, getting started. And I say this whether you're teaching first graders or medical school students, but whenever you're showing a new tool, a new ed tech tool, maybe it's Harmonize, maybe it's Canvas, maybe it's something else you're adding, VoiceThread, whatever, and you're like wanting to get students comfortable in there, don't provide a topic that is something new to them as well. Always start with a new tool, with a concept or topic that they're experts on. And when it comes to discussions, have them introduce themselves. And in this COVID era where we can't be face-to-face as much as we like, and we need to make those personal connections, start with your first Harmonize or Canvas discussion being, introduce yourself to the class, tell us why you're here, where you're from, something interesting about you, what you're good at cooking, whatever it is. And that way they can just put all of their cognitive load on the tool and be comfortable with it. And then nothing's graded. And then they're more likely to use it in the future now that they're comfortable with it, when you start giving them topic and curriculum-based questions.
Yeah, let me back that up. So I've seen a lot of instructors. There was one in particular out in North Carolina who did required an intro video, and the intro video was required to be 3 minutes long. Go. And it was amazing to see, because she shared some of the videos with me, played them for me, and in the first 30 seconds, oh my gosh, was it awkward, talking about their pet turtle and just stuttering and struggling. But they got over that hump and became comfortable with it pretty soon, and they weren't being graded on it, so it kind of removed that stress. And she said that doing that type of thing, she sees a lot of increased sort of comfort and engagement, and then they can use video later on in the course without having that sort of, oh my gosh, my first video is going to be graded and I have to be intelligent on this topic. It was talking about themselves, and the requirement for 3 minutes, she said, was pretty key, because they needed to get over that hump of awkwardness, and they were comfortable just talking to the camera and talking to their classmates, because they're used to TikTok, they're used to YouTube. They can do that if you can just provide the sort of grease those wheels for them. But even in that icebreaker, it's clear to point out expectations were set, 3 minutes type of thing. Once again, we're going to remind you of this one more time, but Heather needs a little bit of time in the background to actually pull together who filled out to enter into the drawing. So get your information in if you want to be in for the iPad drawing. All right, onward, Michael. I think you were going to handle this one, correct?
Sure. Unless there are any other questions coming in from the chat. Did we miss anything?
Let's keep going with this one for now.
Okay.
Sounds good. So the question came in from Christopher, New Hampshire. When I ask students to submit images and videos through a Canvas discussion, there are issues that come up with attachments. I've seen this happen as well. You like go to add an image, and if the student doesn't bring it in, like embed it in there, or they attach it, then they have to open it in another window, and it gets hard to see it in the conversation. Sometimes students will add file that has to be downloaded. How do images and videos work in Harmonize? Let's take a look. In Harmonize, let me leave the notifications real quick. Have a post area here, create a post, which brings up the, oops, something went wrong. Brings up the, what's called the editor, which will allow you to easily drag and drop and add images. So here you can see I've created the topic for the conversation, and I've got a video underneath with a link. So if I were to edit this, here we go. This is what you see, the description. So this is a row, right? You start with a text row. So it's a little bit like the inverse of the Canvas WYSIWYG editor, which has a lot of tools in one box. What we've done is created a different box for each tool. So your text box is here, and if you don't want it, you can click the X and get rid of it. You can add video. If you want to add a picture, you can either drag and drop an image right here, or simply click this and then find the picture that you want to add. So if I'm talking about meditating, I can add a picture of meditate. I can then make the thumbnail size small, medium, or large, and then that will populate that row in the editor. So when I click Save and Close, you'll now see that I have my text above, then my video from YouTube, which was added by a link, and then my image underneath. Now, if you ever want to add any video to a comment or a post, there are I've miscounted. There are these buttons down here, 6 buttons that allow you to add more rows. And here's a row button to add record or audio video. So here I can click record audio or record video. It's a simple one click and done. Hey, look, there's me. I'm on the discussion on the web. This is like Inception or something. And so I click record. And I'll start. The one cant that I would like to bury is my inability to stay calm and focused. I can't meditate. I need to learn how to meditate better. Then I click stop and wait for it because it goes to space. But it processes the video. It does have a 5-minute max, and we set that for 2 reasons. One, to save space, and also to save attention span, because nobody wants to watch a video that's more than 5 minutes long. My video is now ready. I can play it and watch it again. I can add closed captioning if I like. Again, I can delete it if I want to. But Marcus, I'm going to go ahead and point it out here. We have a feature that allows you to auto caption the video. So it will automatically have closed captioning to it in a couple of minutes. But you can also add your own closed captioning if you want to upload this SRT file. One other thing I should point out is I have the ability to flag a question for the teacher. So if a student does need teacher presence and needs something responded to immediately, they can click that button and then teacher's notified. And then when I'm finished, I click publish. And now what you're going to see down here in my card is because I uploaded a video, you'll see a thumbnail of my video. And just like everything on the web, it always captures your face when you're in the most awkward possible moment. Either your eyes are half closed or you're making a weird expression. But there I am. And then when another student wants to look at my post, they can click on it, flips the card. Again, I want to roll up these details so I don't have to keep scrolling through them. And then I click play. And you can see the closed captioning has already loaded on this video. So that's all set and ready to go.
If I could jump in.
Yeah,
if I could jump in real quick on the equity issue, like this is pretty important to me and to a lot of people, is that if you're doing something, make sure that it's accessible. So we strive a lot to be able to make that easy for you. But like if you're going to do videos, we auto caption because you're going to leave folks behind, not just for accessibility, but also if I'm in a coffee shop and I want to be able to consume your content, but I don't have my headphones with me, I'm not going to watch your content if there's not captioning on it. There's all kinds of reasons to do this sort of thing. ESL, if I struggle with you're speaking too quick, as I always speak too quick, then the captions can help me as well as a second source of learning.
Marcus, this might be a good time to talk about Keith's comment over there on the side, looking for ideas for engaging upper elementary students in discussions. I have a little flashback to about the year 2006 when I was teaching third grade and had a student who, if I asked them to type or write, their language disability was so intense that this kid would be in tears within like a minute of any writing activity. So what I used was something called Audacity, which allowed him to record his voice rather than write. He could just talk out his thoughts. And he did confess to me one time that he was a big fan of the radio show. This was before podcasts, Car Talk. And so he started making his own weekly like car talk, but it was his way of talking about what he learned, reflecting on the week, what he hoped to learn next week. And he would have more thoughtful and interesting replies than anything that was written by the students. That was his way of conversing. So I think that for your upper level elementary school students, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, they would thrive with being able to add video and audio to their discussions, which they can do in Canvas, but they can do easily here as well. So that's a recommendation, is giving your students that multimedia constructive avenue for sharing what they're thinking could go a really long way.
Another thing that I've seen that works really well is if you almost pretend that they're going to be YouTube streamers and you're setting up a place for them to actually create their own YouTube channel. I mean, it doesn't have to be YouTube, obviously, but if you have a tool that allows you to do audio or in video or whatever, a lot of them, I don't speak of, a lot of children watch a lot of YouTube, watch gamers play in other games, whatever their passion is. And so if they can get in that, like, I'm in control, I'm authoring, and I'm trying to mimic this thing that I actually consume and enjoy, but then you can wrap that around into your content a little bit. So it's obviously more academically appropriate. That would be another suggestion that I've seen work well.
Let's take really quick this question here from Milton down in Ecuador, who's wondering if you can embed external apps like Flipgrid or Nearpod into Harmonize. Can you embed some kind of live event from Teams, for example, in Harmonize?
So when we, I'm going to get a little geeky. There's some technology out there that most websites follow. I don't know exactly if Flipgrid and Nearpod do, that allow you to, if you're embedding an external source, we will pull it in with a preview so that it's easy to get to and it's one click away. It's called Open Graph, but you don't need to know that. You just need to try it and see. So almost everything that we try works this way, to where you can actually embed them straight into the Harmonized discussion. We actually, for things like Teams and for things like Zoom, we actually give you, Michael's on it, good job. We actually give you a place to embed the meeting URL, because this is a super important best practice, is that if you're going to do a synchronous session, try to keep it short, because otherwise you're having people on for an hour and maybe their lifestyles don't fit with that, back to the equity issue, but also engagement wise, like, can you keep it in short? Because after a certain while, I start to fade in Zoom meetings. But we will allow you to schedule one of those into a discussion topic with the idea that you can create a prompt. Here's what I want you to think about before we meet. Here's when we're going to meet. We're going to notify the students when that's going to happen. And then we give you a place to either drag that recording back in or drag any files back in that happened during the discussion. So those students who didn't make it at all can actually see what happened, catch up, and then we recommend follow-up questions in the same discussion prompt. So you're going from asynchronous in the discussion into a shorter synchronous session where you really are engaging them because they already answered the prompt. Maybe you set up a milestone to do that, to say, before this starts, you need to actually make 2 posts and 3 comments. They've got their brain engaged. They synchronize, come together, maybe in small groups, maybe not, and then roll out back into the asynchronous discussion. And then the conversation continues. And then those students who missed your synchronous session don't miss out on the class. They can come back in, do the whole thing. If they maybe if you're like me again and you speak too quickly, they can be like, and they can go watch the video recording again to see what they missed because I was moving too quickly. And then sort of that back and forth. So we explicitly call out synchronous meetings in that way. And then for things like Flipgrid and Nearpod, you can drop them in with the link embed tool to be able to do that.
I just want to add, for the Canvas users out there that have embedded things from Nearpod into a Canvas course, you have to build your Nearpod lesson in the Nearpod library first, and then you add it. I just want to point out that's not the case with Harmonize. Harmonize is an LTI that's added directly to your menu. So when you do want to create a new discussion, you don't have to go somewhere else and find it and add it or anything like that. You simply click on Harmonize Discussion from your menu and then add topic. Or if you're in an assignment, you would go to the external tool, LTI, and then you would begin editing. So you'd never leave your Canvas screen. You just want to make sure that's clear that everyone is editing right in Canvas in the same window. So Marcus, we covered all of this, right? The row-based editor, drag and drop, auto captioning, and adding rows as necessary. So you can make your discussions as complicated or simple as you want with images, videos, even videos that you upload yourself. And speaking of auto captioning, when you upload a video, it auto captions that as well. So that's a nice benefit. Here's a little image real quick to just show you what I demonstrated earlier with the drag and drop to add to a row. Your video is then embedded. And then once students use images in their posts, their images take the place in the card holder. But if they don't use an image in their post, then their profile picture goes there. So you do see like an engaging, like this is a person and I want to click on it and read it. Did you want to take this question or should I?
Yeah, so this one I think is, we've touched on a lot of this, so I'll brush through it a little bit. But the idea is like, you know, you're in this classroom, you get complaints sometimes that students feel isolated when they're in an asynchronous classroom because they're not engaged. How do you make sure that your students are actually paying attention, that they're getting it, that they understand, and that they're doing it? And so if you want to jump to the next slide, we have a bunch of recommendations on this. Oh, that's right, I combined two of your questions. So another question was like, I'm at home, I'm doing this on my phone, my kids are there, I only have a short amount of time to do these things. And the answer to both these questions kind of overlaps. So we pulled them together. If you want to flip to the next slide. Both flexibility and accessibility and accommodating different learner types all play together. So, you know, when you are doing a post, you know, we showed you could do text, we showed you could do media, video, images, etc. We recommend doing both because some people learn from watching a video, some people learn from reading. And then when you are actually prompting the student to do their work, allow for those different formats as well. So some are going to want to submit a video, maybe some don't, maybe some want to do it purely in text, maybe some want to use a different tool. It's all good. But when you're doing it, keep in mind that especially now in the time of COVID, like everybody's schedule is chopped into millions of pieces. So if you're trying to work on your phone at home, like we totally support that, right? Like you're drifting from your phone, it automatically saves, you pick it up on your desktop, your kid spills coffee on your desktop, you go back over to your iPad, you pick up there, and or you're having to work from a coffee shop, like that captioning type thing and all of that. Like keep everything you're doing in short little chunks to be able to, they can consume, they can pause, they can come back in and consume some more, and they don't have to try to pick up in the middle. So really it's kind of that, like, don't do 1 hour video, do like 3 5-minute videos interspersed with some YouTube videos, whatever it is, keep it in small consumable bits. We go a step further to be able to say, like, you know, if you're going to do small group discussions, we support that because Canvas does it, which is awesome. We also take it down to the one-on-one level. So if you have something where you really want to make sure you're engaging each student in their own way, we can make a private topic so that you can interact with them to be able to do so. But then really kind of the big key is analytics. Like all of that's great, but you have to actually check and see, is the student, are they there? Are they coming in? Are they posting? Because you might have a class of 30, 50, 100, 200 students. And so, Michael, if you want to flip to the next slide. We strive, like we love, everybody loves Speedgrader. So we embed straight into Speedgrader with some analytics for you. So that if you're grading, you can see how the student did, both from did they meet their milestones, what did they write, how many comments did they write, but also how many reactions from their classmates did they achieve, and then also how much of the content did they read. Like if they came in, made a post and left, they're kind of coasting, they're kind of doing minimal. So we get, it's called online listening, and we actually track that for you as well, so that you can say, okay, here's a student who's maybe not doing what they should, and I can then intervene. I can shoot them a chat message, or I can call them out and tag them more to pull them into conversations. And then additionally, like I don't have a screenshot of it, but we give you an analytics that lets you figure out who is slowly disappearing Oh, you could, I guess you could just show it for me. Right. So what Michael's going to pull up is this idea that when I'm in a course, there are 30 students. Like, do I have a couple students who just haven't shown up, have not made comments, etc. So you can go through and actually see who's made activity and not per topic, and be able to see what's going on outside of Speedgrader. But then also, Michael, if you don't mind clicking on the full list of all the topic activity, this would be a good one as well, to say, hey, which students haven't made any posts or comments? So you know, hey, I'm going to tag that student and pull them in. They're going to get an email, or I'm going to reach out to them on chat, or they haven't done it in 7 days, or some self-learning techniques is too, like which of my topics are actually generating the most interest? So I can be like, what did I do there? Like, why was that so compelling? Turns out it's because Michael's demoing and he's always in the first topic, but maybe there's something more interesting for you there as well. So when you're talking, Michael?
No, the first topic has video in it, and the rest of them were all text. I just want to point out, look at how many more comments there were. Not just posts, there's only so many students, but this one had 13 comments. So the students were more likely to go in and engage with students who they saw on video than just
we do see a definite spike when you're using video. People engage more. I mean, there's like, there was a research done of like, what is the most compelling site out there for education, for small tidbits of non-professional learning? YouTube. And the average, just to get back to keep it short, the average attention span is also about 8 seconds. So video plus an attention span of 8 seconds, like hit them quick, sort of TikTok style and pull them back in, is a great way to go.
Are you seeing that, Marcus and Michael? That's such an interesting point. I think so often, and we see so much of this in Canvas, you've got educators who are building these incredible, whether it's Bitmoji pages or whatever else. Some of them are just incredibly complex. And what this data is telling us is that don't trash that stuff, but let's focus on the stuff that really, really engages our students. And from this, it's video.
It is,
question,
and
right?
we're actually starting to do some firm data science on this, because anecdotally what we're seeing, and when we're running our own research, is that video works. Super long discussion prompts don't. So if the student has to read like a wall of text, they'll often just open it, close it, and then be like, I'm going to get to that later, type of thing. And so if you can break that into 2 different topics or 3 different topics, or break it into a topic prompt and then use that extra content you were going to use to keep the conversation going by putting it out there as a post, like those little short snippets are what we're seeing. And so we're actually working with some data scientists to say, like, let's really dig into this. Let's do some natural language processing. Let's see the complexity of what you're doing. Let's see how it correlates with video and whatnot. So we should have some interesting data on that in the next few months as well. That's going to help. I think it's going to help support that, but we'll learn as we go and see. But we're definitely seeing that the longer the content, the more text heavy the content, the more likely students are to check out a little bit. So try to hit them in different ways.
And I love that Sarah put here in the comments, TLDR. I mean, we live it every day in email. It's like, if it's too long, I'm not going to read it.
Right.
I think, Michael, you had something very astute you were about to say, just going off of what Marcus was saying. So I'm going to hand it to you.
Oh,
I hope it's astute. No pressure, Michael. It's got to be astute now. Mark said it was astute.
So I want to just share this for people out there. Like Marcus, you just said everybody loves Speedgrader. We definitely love Speedgrader. It's like the best thing to be able to go in and look at student work very quickly and be able to mark it and have it populate your gradebook. But what I want to point out here is, if you're used to going into Speedgrader and just seeing like a static image of something, or like a PDF report of something that they may have done, that's not the case here. What's happening in Speedgrader is it's populating with the actual activity report and the live discussion. So I don't have to open 2 windows, one to read in context and one to grade. I can simply go in here to Michelle's post, and if I want to leave a comment, it's live. I can add a comment to her Harmonized discussion here. If I need to go in and look at what she said to Linda Ronstadt, I can go in and read it and leave a reaction. This is interactive, and it's live, and it's in there in Speedgrader, so you don't have to be in 2 places at once. I just didn't want to forget to share that with everybody. Was that astute?
That was beautiful, Michael. Beautiful.
Thanks.
Oh, Mark, you're on mute.
Oh, because what I was saying was astute as well, Marcus. So we're not even going to repeat what I said. That was dang good, Michael. Dang good.
Where are we at on time? Heather, do you need to make a final prompt for the iPad drawing? Or have you already started processing?
I don't see Heather. Did we lose Heather?
She's still here. Heather, if you're trying to talk, you're not on mute. So let's just keep going with some more questions. I know she's been working on pulling those in.
Cool. This was something that we talked about earlier, was mobile. You know, when you're building content in your course, when you're building discussion prompts, make sure you check them in the Canvas student app. Make sure you check them on mobile. Make sure they work well, especially if you're embedding external content. We handle a lot of that by handling the authoring for you, so you don't have to worry about it. But you know, check it out, because a lot of your students are going to be doing it on mobile. And especially if you think, wow, this is long on a browser as I'm scrolling through it, imagine like how tired your thumb's going to get going up and down on your phone as you go. And because you can work on mobile, remember they have a camera on their phone for the most part. And so if you're asking for video, encourage them to do it on their phone, encourage them to do it right in the app. It'll go well.
So really quick, Marcus and Michael, I just put one final prompt for anybody that's on, and we still got a good group on here. Thanks for joining us from all over. I did say Andre from Argentina, who joins us regularly. Thanks for joining us. I just put a link on all the different platforms for the iPad drawing that Harmonize has been awesome enough to give us. We're going to be doing that in the next few minutes. So if you want to be part of this, I need you to go right now to that link. No, this is not spam. No, I'm not going to take over your computer. No, I'm not going to offer you 50 free whatevers. But you might win an iPad. So go there right now, and we're going to draw in the next few minutes. With that, let's keep going. Let's see. What about this? Michael, this is probably a you question. Jennifer on YouTube is saying, is it better to use through the Canvas module or through an isolated app on the phone?
And that's probably a me question. Use it through Canvas.
Yeah.
You know, definitely in the Canvas mobile app. The idea is that we don't even have an external app because we don't want to take you away from that learning environment. We want you to stay inside of Canvas with your students inside of Canvas, doing things inside of Canvas so that they don't have another app to download, etc. We are implementing a chat is live now inside of our system to where you can do multi-user chat. There's a possibility in the future we might do a mobile app for the chat side of things just to keep it smoother for the student, but we're trying to avoid that at all costs if we can, because we want those students to stay in that learning system. That's kind of key. And so the chat works inside the learning system as well.
Awesome. Let's take some other questions that you had before as we're just about to wrap up.
I love this one because the answer is embedded in the question. Why do students always complain about having to contribute online when they spend all their time on TikTok and Instagram? TikTok is video and it's fun. If you want to flip to the next slide, I know we're academics, text is boring, so use it when you need to, because obviously it's a necessary tool. But if you can express a picture is worth 1,000 words, do it. Make a meme, make a GIF, make a video. This is where students are at like now on the internet. Like they are on TikTok, they're on Instagram. Like I'm on Facebook because I have gray in my beard, but a lot of students are on these purely visual platforms. And you think we are an institution that's focused on academics, yes, but that doesn't mean you can't leverage what they're doing out there with a lot of media and such to be able to get it in.
It's also important to point out that a lot of times we set students up for limited interaction by giving them just like a check the box. You know, we say like leave a comment and then make 2 replies. And so what they do is they go in and just do that, and then they're done and they don't come back to it. So leaving that open-ended sometimes allows them to be more engaged, especially if you're using this type of media engagement. And if you don't put a limit on it, they'll just continue to interact with each other as time goes on. We already
did our last chance,
right?
Yeah, okay. Heather's pulling it now. So, all right, and I think that's the end of our questions we received. Does anyone out there in the internet land have more questions you'd like us to talk through?
I mean, internet land, go ahead, because I can ask questions of these guys all day long. So I'll just come up with whatever here on the fly.
Hey,
so
let
here
me
we
just go clear my calendar. I'll be here all day if you want. Just take a second.
Hey, these two are awesome. Michael and Marcus, if you haven't checked out Harmonize, Marcus, will you tell us really quick, where do people go if they want more information about what you're doing?
Harmonize.42lines.net. Oh, look at Michael. He's going to pull up the website.
Harmonize.42lines.net. You want to take your online discussions and online teaching to the next level with Canvas? Go check them out. They're awesome partners. We are huge fans. Is this video recorded, Jennifer Wise? Of course it's recorded. You can go right onto YouTube, go to Canvas LMS. You could check any of that stuff. Also, right there on YouTube, you can turn the closed captioning on. So yes, Mary Lynn is saying Harmonize is the best. Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Thank you, Mary Lynn. That's nice. Warms my heart when people like using our tools. So that's awesome.
Pamela, same thing. Great presentation. Love Harmonize. Tell me, if you were, Marcus and Michael, if you were just getting started, which is what a lot of people are doing over the past 6 months, just trying to do something, where do they start? I feel like we're almost inundating people with, you got to do this and you got to do that and you got to do that and read this and read that and watch this. Like, let's give them a couple of quick, start here and do these 2 or 3 things. What would they be?
So my first thing, you're coming into a class, you don't want to mess up. Spend your first week in an icebreaker, spend your first week in conversation. Jump in, do a very simple discussion prompt. Just do image, just record a video, nothing complicated, because we have a lot of features for the more advanced users, but we don't mess with those right now. Get in there and get comfortable with the tool and get to know your students, because that creates empathy. And it's fine to be like me, where I'm like, I'm terrible, I talk too quick, or oh, my button was undone funny. Like, creating that sense of like you're a real human being is going to get you so much leeway when you inevitably mess up later in the class, because everybody's going to, especially new instructors. So when you're first starting, play with the tools in a way that's not stressful, because you're messing up in a place that's not graded. So the instructors are like, ah, cool. I mean, the students are like, ah, cool, you messed up, funny. So that's where I steer people to start with. Michael, how about you?
Yeah, I have to make a Star Wars analogy because I'm such a fan. In Star Wars, there's the rule of two. There's always the master and the apprentice. In online learning, I like to think of the rule of one. Just think of one tool that you want to use to solve a problem in your class. And think of the one class, just one class that you're most comfortable teaching with. Maybe it's because you get along with the students the best. It's the time of the day where your Diet Coke kicks in, whatever it is. Pick the one class you're comfortable in, try the one tool. When it works, then use it with all your classes, and then look for the next one thing. And also, I want to reiterate this because I know so many teachers right now are just being inundated with too many tools at once. I think you should always adjust the pedagogy for your students, because you can't adjust the students, right? So you can adjust your curriculum, your rigor, your content, your pacing, adjust the pedagogy for your students, but never adjust the pedagogy for the technology. Never put the technology first, and you'll be fine. Always look to the technology as like the 3rd or 4th ingredient in success. You know, students first, then content. It's kind of like that TPAC analogy, right? Technology, pedagogy, and content knowledge. Shouldn't that really be like capped, right? Like students, content, then technology at the end. So put all those things first. Just remember one thing, you'll be fine.
Yeah, we try to say, yeah, get the technology out of the way. I did see Jennifer had a question in there that, yes, the videos are closed caption. We funnel them off to a server to close caption for you. You're allowed to download, edit, replace those with nicer closed captions if a machine makes a mistake as you go.
Awesome. With that, let's close here just with Laura's excellent comment about great presentation. Always love finding ways to take my course to a new level. I love this from Sarah. Sarah, I believe, is the same one who gave us the TLDR earlier. If a tool isn't doing the job, we find a different tool. It has to be helpful or we don't use it. So yep. Fantastic. Okay, let's bring Heather back in for the really fun stuff, which is giving away an iPad. So I think Michael's going to spin it for us, right?
Yep, Michael, there's a new link for you. I just put it in the comments. Yep.
In the comments of our conversation?
Yes.
In the private chat?
Yes.
There you go.
Okay. Everybody watch me copy and paste. What was it? Command C? Command B? Command P? All right, there we go.
Control P for print. Control print. Whoa, look at all these people.
Click to spin.
This is the moment, everyone.
I'll make the noise for you. Tick, 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 tick,
yeah.
tick, 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 tick. K-Knox D.
Oh, I think that might be Diana Knox. Is that you? I would be so thrilled if it was. Diana Knox is one of our very favorite Canvas users. But I don't know her email off the top of my head. So Thank you again so much to the Harmonize team. They're doing incredible things. Go check them out. They've got some webinars coming up, harmonize.42lines.net/webinars. They've got multiple coming up in the next several weeks, so go check them out. Thanks so much for joining us. It is Diana Knox. Diana, we like you. Harmonize likes you. The iPad world loves you, and we hope you have a great day. Look at that.
We're not sending you Michael's used one though, because it's got dirty fingerprints on it. So yeah, we'll be in touch via email, Diana, and we'll organize how to get it to you. So
Thank you.
So fantastic, Diana. Congrats, my friend. And again, big thanks to our friends over at Harmonize. Go check them out. They're doing incredible things, and we're so grateful for their partnership with us at Canvas. Marcus, Michael, and Heather, have a lovely, lovely day. Thanks for all you're doing. And we will be back, everybody, tomorrow morning at 10:30. It's going to be a Canvas Ask All. Any question you want, you bring it. We're answering it on the spot, 10:30 a.m. We'll see you tomorrow. Thanks,
Awesome.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.